Hi guys, welcome to my channel. Today we're talking about the recap of Insecure Season 5, Episode 1, which is effectively the first episode of the last season of Insecure, which makes me incredibly sad. I've been a fan of Insecure since the very first season. I actually started watching Insecure uh, after I watched the misadventures of Awkward Black Woman, and I also read Issa's book. I'm a big Issa Rae fan. I I know that this season is going to be poignant for me. I'm probably going to end up crying when it ends, but I am excited that Insecure is back. It's such a well-written show, well-acted show. They've done such a good job with the entire framework of the show, and Issa's vision was 5 seasons and it's over. So we are currently on season 5, and we're just going to have to live with it being the last one. So, this episode, season 5, episode 1, is called Reunited. Okay. And we see it's about 2 months after, I guess, where we left off in season 4, where Issa and Molly had met up to try to start repairing their relationship. Issa had found out that Condola was pregnant with Lawrence's baby. And so we kind of didn't really see the fallout of either of those situations. We really only are now seeing the after effects of past that. So that's a kind of an interesting point of where Issa wants us to start with, because we didn't get to see the immediate fallout. We're seeing after the immediate fallout, which we possibly could get some flashbacks to what maybe happened in those couple of months that we missed. But we do start off where we see Kelly and Tiffany and Derek are driving, and they're headed, it looks like, on a road trip. Kelly's scrolling through IG and remarking the different things that she's seeing, but she's in the back, and Tiffany is like, you can't keep doing that while we're driving the entire way. So she's like, oh, I'm sorry, but I'm just going through my page and I keep seeing stuff. She's like Molly, like, girl, are you okay? And we see that she's showing that Molly is posting selfies, but she's like posting half her face. So it looks like Molly is not necessarily at her best after her breakup with Andrew, and kind of the still, I guess, in an intermediate space between her relationship with Issa and rebuilding their friendship. So the next part that we see is Issa flying into San Francisco airport. So when I saw this, I was like, oh, so her and Lawrence didn't break up because she's going to go visit him in San Francisco. Because when we left, he was supposed to be moving to San Francisco, and they had said, they would be okay with the long distance and they were going to make it work. So I thought that she was going to be going to see Lawrence. So we see her going to get into a black car, and she gets into the wrong car, which was absolutely very Issa, very funny. She gets into the wrong car, and we see that she gets out, goes to look for the right driver, and then the next scene we see she's at Stanford. And I'm still trying to remember if they ever mentioned that they were all Stanford graduates. I can't remember that part. I do have to go back and see if they referenced it in any of the other um, episodes. But we see that based on the banner and some other, like promotional information, they are all there for a Stanford alumni reunion, which is awesome. So Issa walks in and she sees the others, and she find she finds out that her and Molly are twinning, but then it's kind of like they're really awkward when they see each other. So they don't know how to still, it looks like, deal with each other back and forth, have proper conversations, or even they're still not in a place to like joke with each other, or even reference some of their, looks like, long-standing history, which is sad because, as we remember, that was their relationship. They were always joking with each other. They were always being able to reference, remember when we used to do that, remember when we used to do that. And it's like, this would probably be the best place for that, and yet they're still in such an awkward place that they can't do that, which is sad because we all really do love their relationship, loved their relationship in the few seasons before. So as everybody's talking, we find out that Issa's landed on a name for her company. She's decided on Block, BLOCC, which stands for Black Life and Opportunities and Cultural, Black Life Opportunities and Cultural and Connections. And for some reason, it's not flowing because the way I can't even say it, Issa can't even remember it. So she's still like, oh, well, I was going back and forth on that last C. But we see she's still not in a pace where she's comfortable with this leap that she made the last season and a half, where she's decided to step out on her own and be her own businesswoman. She's still trying to find that place of being confident in the company and the uh in the vision that she's created, which I think she's going to get there. She just has to kind of find it with herself. I do feel like her vision is coming more solidified, and that she could even try to name it and what it means for her. I just think that she needs to solidify it even more to have more confidence in it. So then the next thing we see is Molly mentioning that she's still seeing Dr. Rhonda. And Dr. Rhonda basically told her, listen, stay present, stay in the moment of what you're trying to do for yourself. Basically, she's telling her, listen, stop jumping into all these relationships. Focus on you, center yourself, get yourself together, focus on, the goals that you have, which probably includes, fixing her and Issa's relationship. And she's like, focus on where you want to go for yourself from now rather than looking to 10 years ahead. And I can understand this because I'm very much a, hey, I know this is what's happening with me right now, but like, where am I going to be in 5 years? Let me start planning it out. Let me start mentally thinking it out. And she's telling her just to stay present. So Tiffany and Derek noticed that one of their fellow alumni has brought her children, to all five kids, to the reunion, and they wonder, well, Tiffany wonders if they should have brought Simone. But Derek says, listen, this is our getaway weekend. This is our weekend just for us. We did the right thing by leaving her home. And I think we're seeing with Derek and Tiffany where they're also kind of still in a place where they're trying to find their single relationship between the two of them after everything that happened with, you know, Tiffany running away, having, her bout with postpartum, and him having to take care of the baby, and really finding their own relationship again, separate from the baby. And I really think that this weekend is probably going to be the best thing that can happen, because sometimes when you go back and you're like where your love started from, you can really kind of find that place to continue and say, oh, this is where, where we fell in love. This is, how we began, and the place that we are now, it'll get better because we had such a solid foundation that we can call upon. um, as Derek is flipping through the alumni guide, he notices that Kelly has a memoriam page, and she had remarked earlier that she had to ask the lady for for a name badge because they said she wasn't a confirmed attendee. And so the lady had wrote her name in, and she didn't understand why that was. Well, come to find out, they killed her off, which I think is, I know it shouldn't be funny, but it was actually really hilarious, because out of all the people there, it's like Kelly is the person that everybody takes the least serious. And so you even note that from how the reactions that everybody was getting for her being dead, like the notations in the guide, the notation we'll see later on the little screen when they're flashing the in memoriam of all the alumni that has passed. And so of all the people to kill, it was kind of sad, but also it ends up kind of being, I think, an eye opening moment for Kelly down the road, because it was like she, she had to kind of find her place with all these people, that she wasn't just a funny friend. And that's kind of what we've been getting from Kelly the entire series, though. Kelly has been the funny friend. She's always bringing the comedy. She's always being the one doing crazy ass shit. And we see that, like, episodes to episodes, that when stuff is going crazy, it's usually because it involves Kelly, like, speaking like that she's from the UK to a guy because she lied about where she was from. And going in and having to what you call it, like, distract people because she realized that somebody else was doing something that they always kind of send Kelly in on the front lines, even when she's helping the guys, like helping out Issa. Like, it always ends up being like a funny moment. And so I do feel like it's kind of character development for us, because that is all we've seen from Kelly, and that is what we usually can expect from Kelly. But this episode, Kelly was so, like, she was just very serious, because I think it really kind of hit her that, like, maybe nobody was really taking her as serious as she wants. um Hi, Brandy. Yes, I agree. It was definitely I opening moment for Kelly, and I agree. I think this episode kind of just started kicking off what we're gonna see, is even from the previews that we see later. I think this is gonna be the season where I don't know if you watch 20s. In 20s, they were talking about writing a series, and in writing a series, you're supposed to move the characters little bits by little bits as the series goes out. You're not supposed to change them too much, but I actually think this last season we're gonna see, like, an immense growth from every single character before we leave off on the whatever episode. I think we're getting 10 episodes this season again, but I would have to look it up. But I definitely think that this season is going to be about growth. And even in growth, it might mean maybe returning to some place or person that they left off in, season 1, 2, or 3, or 4, but still being a different person and being able to come back to a different situation, different person, and being who they are now with those similar situations, with those similar peoples, but we're seeing the growth of these characters. So I'm actually excited for that. Brandy said yes, it's 10 episodes. Yeah, so I'm excited for that because I really hope that we get to see. I know, like, a lot of times we don't get to see everybody's like happily ever after, but I'm a big happily ever after person. So I really do hope that we get to see like everybody's happily ever after. Like when we leave the 10 episodes, we feel like these characters are okay. These characters got what they wanted. Even if that means Molly or Issa leaves the series alone. I hope that's not the case. But even if they leave the series alone, just as an independent woman, I really do hope that we are really happy in the place that they're left. So as we continue, Molly kind of checks in with Kelly because she's like, hey, like, I still feel this weirdness between me and Issa. Like, what is going on? And she's like, when you guys, her and Tiffany, went through their little period of their own, rebuilding of their friendship, she's like, what did you do to to make sure that you guys were good? Like, what did you do to get past all this awkwardness? And Kelly just told her, you gotta laugh at her jokes even if they're not funny. You stay present, like listen to what she's saying. And I think this was really good advice, especially for Molly and Issa, because when we see later down the road, it's like it's more Molly trying to really realize that she's the one that needs to repair the relationship, because I really do feel like um if you talk to me the last couple of seasons, I really do feel like both of them were at fault for their split, but I do feel like Molly was more in the wrong, because where we see like with Kelly, everybody takes her as a joke. I feel like Molly was very, very unsupportive of Issa and Issa's endeavor to move forward in her career and to be a different person. And in that she did not take seriously what Issa was trying to do, and in fact discouraged her in a lot of different ways. And I think it really, really impacted their relationship because of that. I feel like some of the individual things that they did, the pettiness and the little individual things that they did, I think definitely both contributed to it. But I do feel like most of that was because since season, I would say end of season 3 onto 4, we just saw that Molly was not okay with Issa becoming into who she wanted to be, reaching her goals, because it threatened Molly in, oh my gosh, if Issa gets her shit together, she's not going to need me, right? She's not going to need me to give her money or to stay at my place, or she's not going to be that friend. And it just caused, I feel like, some insecurities in Molly. That's why we saw in season 4 she was really, really unsupportive, to the point of not even talking to Andrew to have him help Issa out. And my whole thing is I did kind of agree with Issa on how she went about asking Andrew for help, because in my opinion, if not for Issa, you would have never met Andrew, because the contact that you met Andrew through was Nathan. So um but then we see Derek and Tiffany are we're still talking about their love story and how they came about. Supposedly somebody wasn't aware that they were a thing except for their close friends. But he's like, no, everybody knew. On our first date, I carved our name into a tree. She's like, no, you didn't. And he's like, yes, I did. And she's like, well, I'd have to see. He's like, oh, I'm gonna find it. So then we see them kind of turn over into the next scene, that it's the alumni dinner, and they see friend who was an alumni, but they weren't sure. It's their friend Cheyenne, who apparently they had a rap group, and I said, of course they had a rap group. I should have known, because Molly's a big DMX fan, and Issa has always been rapping, so of course they had a college rap group back in the day trying to be rappers. But apparently they all thought that they fell out with this girl. Tiffany at least really does not like this girl. But then they realized, oh no, we didn't fall out with her. She never actually graduated from college because she left early to go on tour um, with Ciara, apparently. So they go up to the girl and they're talking to her. And she basically kind of confirms, like, she's still doing her thing. She was just in a Sweetie video, and they're all like, cool, and then she does like a leg lift, and she like challenges Kelly, and Kelly does the leg lift, and apparently Natasha Rothwell said that she had to stretch and practice for weeks in order to get that leg lift right. So I'm like, I don't even know if I could do it. Like, I definitely probably couldn't do a leg lift. So shout out to Natasha for whatever she did to get that leg lift, because that leg was high. Um, and then we see Molly and Derek are off talking to a few other friends of theirs, and the friends are like kind of going over some stuff that they've been through their life. Next thing she knows, two of the friends are like, "Oh, Amari's divorced," and they drop the tea, and then they leave him there with Molly to like clean up. And so Molly and him like kind of go back and forth, a little bit of banter, like, oh well, why they telling me that? He's like, oh, they wanted us to get back on our thing that we had in college. She's like, there was no thing. We were friends with benefits. You really wasn't checking for me. And she was she was like, I don't know what that's about. But of course, with Molly, we know that it's always kind of gonna be like, oh man, well, should I get back with him? Like, is this like something, like, is God trying to like tell me something? And again, I have been where Molly is. Like, sometimes you really just are trying to figure out, when you're trying to figure out what to do to forward move your life, you're really kind of just like, what signs are God trying to give me? Because this didn't work out for me. That hasn't worked out for me. I'm trying to be in a better place. Am I in the right place? Is this the moment for me and him? But then you're kind of going like, well, he's not what I wanted though. So how could he be the right person? And like, he's divorced, and I'm not looking for a divorced guy. And like, what kind of red flags is that? Because like, who is the one who initiated divorce? And we see that she kind of has that conversation with Issa down the road. So Issa, I think she goes to like the bathroom uh at the alumni dinner, and she goes, I think it's the bathroom. I don't think it's back at the hotel. Um, but then we see her college version of her mirror bitch, which has braces, and she's like kind of hyped like Issa still is, but she's like, "Oh my god, we look so good," and like, you must be like a really big thing right now. She's like, "Yeah, they got me speaking at the alumni dinner." So we find out like she's really like gonna give a speech about who, she's become as this entrepreneur. So then Mirror Bitch is like, so okay, so is it that you and Molly created this law firm that you guys are always talking about? And she's like, nah, like, I didn't want to be a lawyer. And she's like, oh, okay, well, okay, yeah, that's true, we didn't want to be a lawyer. um so how are you and Molly, are you guys in a good place? And she's like, oh no, we're kind of, yeah, we're okay, but we're not in the best place. And then she's like, oh, I'm an entrepreneur. And then she goes through the company name again, and then she's still forgetting the name of the company. So uh it's just absolutely funny, because it's like, even Issa can't seem to find this confidence to like big up her mirror self like she used to. Because remember, like the first few seasons, she's always been able to like even like use the energy that the mirror person gives her to find her confidence, when even in moments where she feels like she's not where she needs to be. So then the next thing we see is Issa giving this speech at her alumni reform, that it's a bunch of people sitting at the alumni, uh I would say, dais, talking about the things that they've gotten to do in, I will say, the past 10 years, how successful they are. And it feels like the person who feels the least successful on that panel is Issa. And I do want to say one thing about this. I think that's all about perception. So when you perceive yourself as being confident in where you want to be, and everything, you could pretty much front something so that you portray the confidence that I think Issa's not at that point yet. Whereas the other alumni, they they're not necessarily in the place that they necessarily want to be, but they're able to kind of front like they are, um, and portray that they're in the places that they all want to be as entrepreneurs. And even the speaker on the dais is like, oh, I'm glad I have a 9 to 5. So we see that Issa is still really, really uncomfortable in being a leader, being an entrepreneur, and she's just not on the path to being as confident as she needs to bring her business to life. But I think she's going to get there, because I actually think that the vision, I thought her vision from season 4 was a really great idea. And we see how much success she had up until the fight with Molly, for the block party. So then the girls meet outside, and they're all, clapping for her, and they're really proud of her. And I'm really glad, though, that she was able to have her friends there to be supportive of her. Even Molly, who is still trying to find her footing as a friend, of being supportive but also being a truth teller. But I really do think that Molly was really proud of her, and she even kind of alludes to that, her words, even though she knows that Issa is still trying to grapple with being a better entrepreneur, and being the best person that she wants to be, she feels like her words were inspirational. So we see that, they have a little more of a one-on-one conversation. They decide to go off alone while Kelly goes and I think goes with Tiffany to an AKA alumni party or dinner. And I do find, or luncheon, and I do want to talk about what happened on social media today, that how the AKAs were really, really upset with Tiffany's character, with Amanda Seales' character wearing the AKA letters on a TV show. And I'm really kind of not understanding what the issue is. I myself had never pledged anything, but I would think that representation alone, authentic representation alone, would be more supported and be more accepted than ridiculed. That the fact that AKA, I mean, because they could have chose Deltas, they could have chose anybody else. They chose AKAs for Molly and Tiffany to be in the show. So I mean, and they could have literally had them be two separate sororities. So I'm I would think that it would actually be a better accepted representation. The fact that these are authentic sororities that they pledged at Stanford, because I know for a fact that they do have that sorority. My cousin went to Stanford. My cousin is an AKA. So they are actually portraying a Black woman's experience in Stanford in a sorority. So why then would people who are in the sorority be upset that they were represented on TV? I would think it would be a moment of pride. But people were sending Amanda Seales emails because they're like, oh, you must be a real AKA. And she's like, no, I'm not. And then they were like mad at her for representing a character that she didn't write, that she didn't produce, that was given to her to portray. And I just felt like, well, I first of all, why are you mad at Amanda Seales? What did she do? But also, I do feel like if they had like come up with some sort of faux sorority, they would have said it wasn't real. So I just feel like at this point, you kind of would have been damned if you do, damned if you don't. Um, but I liked the representation, and I mean, I'm not in a sorority. I never pledged, as what's her name, Amanda Seales said. When I was in college, I was like in the me five me of it all. So I had no intention of uh joining sorority. I don't even know if my school had any of the Divine Nine at their at in the school, so I wouldn't even know. But I just feel like it was, proper representation. So we see that Molly and Issa sit down for lunch, and Molly asks, does Issa think that they're going to be okay? And Issa, because somebody had dropped off like a newspaper, and she's like, Issa's like, the world is crappy, and it's going to hell, and you know, and Molly asks the question that we kind of all want to know: are they going to be okay? And Issa's like, us or the world, and she's like, us, and Issa says, yeah, I think we're going to be okay, and I do feel like they're going to be okay. They're going to be okay because they both want to be okay. I think that was also what was missing from their relationship. We kind of see it season after season. It was like it was either one person um, fighting for the relationship or the other person fighting for the relationship. And it was never both of them fighting for the relationship. And I feel like the reason why they will be okay after this is because they are both gonna fight for this relationship this time. So then they get a text and it says that Cheyenne wants to go to a party downtown, some old club that they used to go to. And does Issa and Molly want to go? They said, sure, why not? So they're in the car, and Kelly was kind of upset about her in memoriam, and who could blame her, really? Like, I that's kind of like staring down death, to be truthful. It's like, oh my gosh, like, I'm been killed off, and uh nobody seems to care that it could potentially be impacting me, that they killed me off. So I do feel like, while the other three in the back, Cheyenne, Issa, and Molly, weren't really paying attention to Kelly's mood, Tiffany was kind of paying attention. She really kind of noticed that her friend was really not in a high spirited mood like she usually is in. And so we see that, they're all laughing and joking. Apparently Kelly is allergic to kale. And so she's like, y'all are joking about this. And they're like, but we used to make up a rap about it, about you being allergic to kale. And they're making a joke, and we don't see Tiffany really laughing. And it's possible because Tiffany doesn't really like Cheyenne. It's also possible because she really, she's Kelly's best friend. So she knows that more than likely something that's happening in Kelly is not being, received by the other three. So Cheyenne mentions that, oh, remember they used to water down the drinks at the club, so let's stop at the liquor store just to get, something of so that we could get our buzz on. So they stop at the liquor store downtown, and as they're coming out of the liquor store, some guy approaches them with a gun and tells them, give him everything, the liquor, Molly's Cartier watch, um the all the money that they have on them, their purses and stuff. And we see that Molly and Issa is like turning everything over. Cheyenne is there freaking out and making a whole big thing about it, and you know being loud, and the guy's like telling her to shut up, and she's like getting louder, and he's like, Cheyenne, shut up. And it's like, wait, what? How do you know her name? And we come to find out he knows Cheyenne, like he's her boyfriend or whatever, and they're both robbing them. And I'm just like, what? The entire time I was like, wow, like she really came to this alumni dinner to put marks on people, to rob them. Like, is she even really in a Saweetie video? Is that what video girls are doing now in LA? I know it's hard in LA. It's expensive. But are we really robbing people at alumni dinners? That is the question. So she tells Molly's to come up off of the shoes. Molly's taking her shoes. Issa's like taking up her shoes, about to hand it to her. She's like, nah, you can keep those shoes. And Issa is so offended that she doesn't want her shoes. They go back to the car with no liquor, no money, none of their jewelry, none of their stuff. And Tiffany and Kelly look in the back of the car like, where's the stuff? Where's the liquor? Where's all y'all stuff? And they're like, Cheyenne just robbed us. And it's like kind of a momentary shock, but she probably did the best thing for Issa and Molly's relationship, because they just looked at each other and started cracking up. I agree, Brandy. Brandy says she definitely was putting on a front. She was never in the video. I can't imagine her being in a Saweetie video and have it like Saweetie is like recent. Like she wasn't saying she was in like even if she was trying to say she was in a Cardi B video because I don't think Cardi B has had a video for like a year because like she was pregnant, right? Like a Saweetie video, Saweetie just had an album, so it's like I couldn't understand that, but that's pretty recent. So me trying to say that you have money, I don't think she has money. Um, but yeah, what she did was probably the best thing for Issa and Molly's relationship because they start cracking up laughing. They really realized how laughable that entire situation was, as well as scary. Um, but we see that it not only like kind of solidifies their friendship back, but it also brings them to a better place. And I think it was really thought provoking, as we see later. In the next scene, we do see a real in memoriam for Kelly, and it's like, wait, what happened? Did we jump time? Did Kelly die? And we see them, each giving a speech. Um, there's some pancakes with a candle in it. Issa's like, she clipped coupons for me for 6 months when I was in financial dire straits. And you could tell by Issa's words, like she was really, really, poignant about it. Like it was really impactful to her. Um, Tiffany talks about how much she's a ride or die, even more than Derek. She apologizes to Derek. Um, then we see Kelly's like, I ain't going nowhere right here. And Derek is like, y'all are doing too much. But we see Kelly's crying. She says, I love y'all. Um, and she needed that. She needed them to know that she loves them, she appreciates them, and she needed that back from them. So I really think that was like a really, really good scene because, as I said, we've only really been seeing Kelly as this, effectively cast clown to people the entire time. So we're trying to grow a character who at this point is been a class clown this entire time. It's going to take something really shocking to do that, and I think this entire thing where she was killed off is going to do that for her. We see Derek and Tiffany talking about how they walked and they found the tree that he carved their name in, and they're like, how sweet it is. And it's really sweet to see, like, in the same scene we're also seeing their relationship more solidified, their relationship kind of moving forward, because Tiffany seems softer. I don't know if anybody else felt like that or noticed that normally, Tiffany's always like, oh, that's not what it is. She's always kind of coming back to Derek and kind of like not necessarily putting him down, but always kind of like, you know, coming back at him like he kind of doesn't know what he's talking about. But she's allowing him to have these moments where he's being like a sweet husband, and she's not stopping him or trying to bring him back to the real world. And it's really kind of sweet to see, because I mean, effectively, Tiffany and Derek are the only ones in an actual marriage and relationship. They have kids, they're grown-ups. We would like to see them progress as a family, as a unit. While they're still in their 30s, if they're going to have a lasting relationship, their relationship also has to grow. So it was, I really liked that scene, because we really did get to see kind of two moments of growth from while they're not like the main characters, from two important characters that we've been, together on this show for the entire time. So they all separate. Issa and Molly leave. uh Derek and Tiffany leave. And Kelly leave. They go their separate ways, and Molly kind of just remarks at how different everything is. And she kind of is like, so what do you think about this situation with Omari? Because she's been, kind of wrestling whether or not she should kind of go against what Dr. Rhonda said and not necessarily be present, but go into something with somebody else. And Issa kind of just tells her why. Like, you weren't checking for him. He wasn't checking for you. What's the difference in 10 years? He's not who you want. Um, and you have to figure out like who you want and who you deserve and go and get that because you deserve it. And this is after Issa really kind of asked Molly, did she really want her opinion? Because remember, that was a big thing last season where they kind of couldn't even really tell each other their opinions on their relationships, on their jobs, on stuff that they were happening in their personal lives, because it had so much eroded. And then we see Kelly on her podcast, and I was like, oh man, I forgot that Kelly had a podcast. And somebody reminded me on Twitter that yes, Kelly in fact had a podcast that she mentioned, I believe season 2 or 3. So we see Kelly on her podcast. We see Derek and Tiffany with beautiful baby Simone, looking so happy. We see Molly at home with her little pooch. And we see that they're all kind of like, yes, things ain't perfect. Life might still have some things that need to be worked out, but they're all happy and they're moving forward. Um, and then we see Issa at LAX, and the person meeting her is Lawrence. They kiss, and she gets in his car. And, they kind of have some like small talk. Do you want to go and eat? And do you want to, do this, do that? And we see, as I said in the beginning of this video, we never got to see the direct fallout from this situation. So this is the first time we're seeing the interaction kind of after he's told her that Condola is pregnant. We don't know kind of what initial conversation was had around the situation, but we see they kind of have like not a rift, but they're not the same where we left them before he told her that information. Because remember, they were like in such a good place, and everybody who knows me knows that I'm not a part of the Lawrence Hive. I'm not necessarily a Lawrence fan, but I will never like fight against their chemistry. They have great chemistry. And I do think they're both in a better place now. Um, but we do kind of see that things aren't quite right. Issa's kind of staring off in the car. Lawrence is trying to make, little small conversation to try to get her to talk. And it's just not the same. Um, it's just not the same as we left them. So we see they kind of like just drive to Issa's apartment building, and Issa gets out the car. Lawrence gets out the car, hands her his suitcase, and she kind of goes to him and says, I thought about it, and like, I can't do this. And I really do think that that robbery was just like that moment of, shoot, like, I'm not going to get anything out of my life that I want. And what is it that I really want? And sometimes when you have those moments, car accidents or robberies, or just kind of things that make you rethink your life, you really kind of realize what you want. And I think for Issa, it was like, I don't want to be a stepmother, um, or in this situation. And so that's what she tells Lawrence. And I don't know when she made the decision. I noticed a lot of people on Twitter were upset because, like, she used him for a ride home. But she might have just came up with that decision in the car. Um, because she was kind of like staring out the window. And I just felt bad because I really do think she probably really wanted to try. And I kind this is the only thing I kind of wish we kind of got those flashbacks to see, like, what was her initial, like, kind of thought process um after that moment where, like, he told her. But yeah, like, we really are seeing that Issa kind of just starts rethinking her life. And yeah, Brandy, I agree. You sometimes you need those moments to, like, reflect. And those are the moments that grow a person, because we see that sometimes people, when you have conversations with them, you're like, oh, this happened to me and that happened to me, and you just notice that how much more mature, how much more of their life that person has. Whereas sometimes we see people who don't ever have anything happen to them, they stay stagnant, and they're not able to, like, move forward in situations, or handle situations, or deal with situations. So definitely, we need those moments sometime to really reflect. And I agree, yes. Destiny 100. The death of a friend could definitely do that to you too, because it's like, maybe Issa was thinking, like, if I die next week, is this the way I want to go out in my life? Do I want to go out trying to, like, fight for this man's attention with an ex and a baby? Um, I do think that if the situation had been flipped and she gotten pregnant by, let's say, Nathan or whatever, I'm not even so sure that Lawrence would have even thought about it to stay. So the fact that Issa even thought about it, I think what really kind of shows how much she really does love Lawrence. Um, I just not sure that she's in a space right now trying to be an entrepreneur, trying to fix her friendship, where she can kind of fight what we know is not going to be an easy situation, no matter how much you love the person that you're in a relationship with. And I think we didn't get confirmation whether or not he ever, moved back from San Francisco. Was he still, which is kind of why I'm like, I really kind of wish we got some flashbacks, like, even at this end part where we got some flashbacks of what, like, happened, what were they talking about, what were they each thinking about before we got this decision. I know Issa wrote I think it was an article in HuffPost about why she made this decision to have them break up. um and it we'll see what happens. We see from the previews that while they break up, they might, well, we've seen it in past seasons. Ethan and Lawrence break up, but they have common friends. They're not ever necessarily going to be out of each other's lives. So when you have that kind of relationship with an ex, it's really hard to allow other things into your life until you totally are able to cut that situation. So we're kind of going to see whether these two come back together at the end, or does Issa end up alone, but in a better place with her career and her friendship with Molly, or does she end up with somebody else? Does she end up with Nathan? Does Daniel come back? Does somebody new come in? Like, what's going to happen? Same thing kind of with Molly. We see that she gets to show her like haircut that she did over quarantine in real life, Yvonne Orgy, on the show. And I actually think I really love that they wrote that into the show, because I think, there's something about when you cut your hair off that it also kind of it's those moments where you kind of like reflect on what kind of power you want to have moving forward. And we know that for Molly, her appearance and being this prim and proper lawyer has always been front and foremost to everybody else in these situations. So it's like, for her to cut her hair and have a like kind of unconventional hair, and then being in the corporate world, it's going to be really cool to see how she kind of solidifies her new self in that vision. And then we also see that they're all growing, they're all kind of moving paths. So that's going to be, I think, the entire theme for this season. Every character is going to grow, and normally we get those little bits of growth over the series, and then the end is like, oh, kind of solidifying where the character's at. But I think with this season, we're going to see the most growth in this season. So I am so absolutely excited for the season. I actually really liked last night's episode. I know a lot of people thought it was slow. I know a lot of people are not happy that Molly and Issa are not like automatically back to BFFs. Um, what what I've always felt like with Insecure is about real life. It's about those things that actually can happen to a person, and how it impacts you, how you navigate it through your life, so that you as a person can reflect on it in a character. I see myself in Issa. I've seen myself in Molly. I've seen myself in Kelly. I don't necessarily see myself in Tiffany because I'm not as bougie. But you can find little bits of yourself in each of these characters, or little bits of yourself in one of the characters. And so if you have a fallout with your best friend, you're not going to automatically be best friends in real life. I know this is a comedy, but I really feel like Issa likes to reflect things that happen in the real world in her shows. So, no, we're not going to get Molly and Issa automatically BFFs. Yes, it's going to be awkward maybe for another episode or two, but I think that's what makes Insecure the show that we've always loved, because these are about Black women in actual real relationships in real life. And that's what I personally love about the show, and that's what I'm personally looking forward to see. How did they end up at the end of this? Because it's going to be hard to like wrap up a real life of somebody in their 30s at the end of 10 episodes. But that's why I said, I know that they're not going to, wrap up everything to a neat bow, but I just hope that we're all happy and okay with how these characters end up at the end of the series. And I'm looking forward to seeing how we get there. So that was I don't know if anybody else had any other comments. I know, Brandy, you did say this. Molly was jealous and selfish, and she wanted to be more of an alpha female of a friend. And I agree. I do feel like Molly is always led with being alpha, and that's why I feel like I'm going to really kind of like seeing her personal transformation as as a more like her being softer. We see already Tiffany is being softer. So sometimes you have to soften as a person in order to be your better self. You can't always lead with judgment. You can't always lead with I I don't have a problem with people telling the truth, but sometimes you have to learn when and what place to speak those truths and how to speak those truths. Because I think a lot of the situations that Molly and Issa got into, she would have Issa would have taken Molly's advice or opinions, but it was also the way that Molly was like bringing forth those judgments and opinions to her. So I'm going to be really excited to see Molly as a better friend, as a truer friend, as a better person, as a truer person. And I do hope that that can eventually lead her to love at the end of this. But I'm also a romantic. So I want everybody to find love. I'm still searching for love myself. So I hope all these characters find love in some way. Let's see. I think I went through all the comments. Yes. So thank you guys for coming to my channel today. I'm gonna try to do an Insecure recap every Monday at 6:30. Only because I noticed that everybody wants to like talk about Insecure right after the show. And so kind of gives everybody to like listen to other people's opinions, have conversations, and then we could kind of come here and chat about it and like how you feeling the next day. I like to decompress. I kind of watch this episode like one or two more times because you always little like see little nuggets, things that you missed, or other people see things that you missed. And so we could come here and talk about that because maybe I missed something, or maybe you missed something and somebody pointed it out to you. So thank you guys for coming to my channel today, and hope to see you next Monday. Remember to watch Insecure, and as always, you remember to follow me on Entertainment in Color on Twitter and Facebook, and Entertainment in Color on Instagram. And we're always there to promote projects, entertainment, media for people of color, and uh, how they are putting themselves out into the world. Content creators, anybody. So follow us there. I'm also on TikTok, but I haven't done a TikTok yet. I'm going to try to do one tonight because I wanted to show something to the audience. I'll probably post it on TikTok and then actually post it on my Instagram so everybody can see. But if you look me up, I'm also on TikTok. Bye, Brandy. Thank you for coming. Thank you all for coming. Destiny 1000 and anybody else who's watching who hasn't commented. And, let me know your thoughts in the comments after we're done. Let me know what you thought about this episode and what you think that we're going to get from the season, what you think that we're going to get from each characters, and what you're looking forward to. And I'm excited to talk to you guys. So have a good night. See you next time, guys.